My name is Marty Hayes. I'm the president of the Armed Citizens Legal Defense Network. We're filming a videotape today with Mr. John Farnam because it is my belief that John hasn't gotten enough public exposure as far as who he is. You know, who is John Farnam? You hear this name bantied around a little bit, but who he is? Who is he? Where did he come from? You know, and so I've asked John to sit down with us and just give us a little bit of background about himself, and I'll ask him some questions about specific things. And as you can see, there's no script here, so this is going to be fairly easy flowing. So, John, can you tell our members who you are and how'd you get here, where you're at?
Yeah. Well, Marty, I can assure you I'm a colossal bore. But I am John Farnam. Currently, I'm a deputy sheriff with Park County in Colorado. I'm currently in my 51st year of law enforcement. I've been a sworn officer since 1970. But most of my time I have spent traveling around the world and around the country teaching classes in defensive shooting. That's my main occupation. I also assist lawyers and prosecutors in shooting cases and provide expert advice and sometimes expert testimony. And it is my honor and privilege to be on the board of ACLDN.
And we appreciate it very much.
And I try to provide good advice to the network. But most of the time I spend traveling around, training and counseling students in the art of forceful defense.
Well, you've given a good explanation as far as the end. What about the beginning, though? How did you get here? What happened, let's say, after high school?
Yeah, well, I graduated from high school in 1963. I graduated from college in 1967, and there was a war going on. I knew I had to be there. So
now wait a minute. Most college kids didn't want to be there. They wanted to get out of it. You wanted to be there?
Yeah, that was my genetic makeup, and heaven knows whom I inherited this from. But I knew I had to be there, and so I went down to Quantico, and I was commissioned a Marine second lieutenant.
Okay.
And my branch was infantry because that's where the fight was, and that's where I wanted to be.
Interesting.
And so I went to basic school and completed my training. And in those days, that was 1968, there was a critical need for second lieutenants and infantry in Vietnam, and they threw us to the wolves. And I was in country for 51 days. On my 51st day, I got my third Purple Heart. I was wounded for the third time, and they sent me home. And when I worked for we had a family business. I worked for a short time, but
can we go back just a little bit to those what was it? 10 weeks, 11 weeks?
Yeah.
That's all, huh?
Well, when I was there, this was 1968, and we were in I-Corps, we had contact every day.
Okay.
When I arrived on an afternoon. It was getting dark. I met my platoon sergeant. The lieutenant I replaced had been killed just days before. Of course, I never met him, and didn't know who half my people were. And they loaded us all in helicopters and flew us out. I didn't even know half my guys. We had to go. There was a downed helicopter we had to go rescue.
Oh boy.
The pilot had no idea where we were going, and when he got anywhere near, he just dumped us off and got the hell out of there. And so for most of the evening, I had no idea where we were. We just dug in and stayed where we were. And then halfway through the evening, there's some illumination rounds went up, and we could, about a kilometer away, we could see the helicopter. That's where you're supposed to go.
Okay.
And I decided to just stay where we were for the rest of the night. And in the morning, we reconnected. And the rest of my time there was very similar. It was, boy, it's hard to describe. It was exciting, terrifying, But of course, I was an officer, so I can't be terrifying,
Right.
because I have to lead people. And so it was a wonderful time in my life, but a terrifying time. Most of my friends were killed. I think about 75% of my OCS class were killed. We were all wounded. I know guys with 5 Purple Hearts. I only got 3, but when you're in modern warfare, there is so much stuff flying around all the time. Bullets and fragments and heaven knows what else. You're going to get hit. You're going to get, the idea that you're going to get through this without getting hit is fantasy. You're going to get hit. And in my case, I was fortunate enough I wasn't hit fatally, but I got hit by bullets and fragments, and just like everybody else. And through the grace of God, and certainly through no fault of my own, I lived through it. And when I got back, again, I thought I was going to have a life in the family business, but that wasn't exciting enough for me.
Well, what were the main lessons you learned from Vietnam that you can now apply to your teaching of the private sector?
Boy, that's a good question. The main lessons I learned from Vietnam is that life is hard, life is dangerous, life isn't fair. Life is about more than just you. You're not that important. You're not in control. Your excuses will never interest anyone. You're going to die. That's the deal, in case you missed it. I would say since then, I have a real problem planning anything. It drives my wife nuts. I saw so many kids die, so many of my friends who had all kinds of plans.
Yeah.
And minutes later, they're dead. That has had a profound effect on me, and you know, I have a hard time planning anything.
Interesting.
Because I saw so many of those plans come to nothing. But I've done my best to go through the rest of my life, and this art, the art of using modern firearms in a self-defensive scenario, and helping people understand that so much of this knowledge has been acquired within my lifetime. And I found that very exciting, and I decided that I need to help myself understand this, and in so doing, maybe help other people understand it to the degree that we can. But to answer your question, I've been very fortunate in my life. I've enjoyed good health most of my life. I've enjoyed good fortune. I could have been killed a dozen times, and just through the grace of God, I wasn't. But I've learned life isn't something you can count on. Ruin is always hovering over us. We have to live life joyfully every day.
Very good.
Because we don't know if we get tomorrow. We don't know if we get this afternoon. We have to get things done. We have to influence people. We have to do good things all the time. I'm not sure I put that very well, but that's probably the way it affected me.
Okay. So you get back from Vietnam, you still got some military service time.
All right. Then I went to work for the family business, and my family was wonderful, and they did their best, but I knew I wanted to be a police officer, and most of all, I wanted to train other people and bring some of my experience, into the business. So I became a young patrolman. And
where was this?
This was in the city of Elroy, Wisconsin.
Okay.
It's just a small hamlet in central Wisconsin. And then I was a deputy sheriff with Juneau County, which is the county that I was in. And then I got divorced in 1985 and I married my current wife 5 years later, and she was living in Colorado, so that's how I ended up in Colorado.
Okay.
And when I got there, I had a lot of students in Colorado, and among whom were some sheriffs, and so I approached my, well, I work for 5 sheriffs now, but I approached the sheriff and said, I live in Colorado now, I need to be deputized. And so
There are some advantages to that.
yeah, he was happy to. In my business, I have to have tin.
Yeah.
Tin is our sarcastic term for a badge. And but I don't get in a beat car very often, but I do train my guys. And again, it's very gratifying to be able to share my experience with some of these young kids, so maybe they don't have to make all the mistakes we made, and we can advance this art. And but I also trained in a lot of non-police also, as we did this weekend. We were there at FAS, and we ran a class this weekend that was very good. So as you can probably tell, I would make a poor employee.
Yeah, that's like me.
So I enjoy being an independent consultant. I've gotten away with it all this time, and so I'm sure I'll continue. In this coming February, I'll be celebrating my 80th birthday,
Very good.
but I'm having too much fun to quit. So I'll keep going as long as I can.
We got together back about 1990.
Yes,
I think you'd just gotten married
right.
to Vicky, but I had heard about you before then. I was in my infancy and starting to teach back in 1987, 88, and I was trying to learn as much as I possibly could. And I came across a little black book called The Street Smart Gun Book
Yes.
by some skinny guy named John Farnam.
My first attempt at publishing.
And I thought it was great. I mean, man, this guy's talking common sense.
I have to make sure I emphasize that I invented very little myself. I was a student of Jeff Cooper's, of course, who deserves an enormous amount of credit for advancing this art.
Did you go out to Gunsite?
Yes, I was a student at Gunsite,
Okay,
and
very good.
in the early days, and Chuck Taylor, who's now dead, but he was influential. Of great influence was our colleague Mass Ayub.
Right.
Mass, it's hard to give him enough credit. He really developed this art, and when I first met Mass years ago, and we lectured together, but I heard his lecture, I realized I was, young second lieutenant back from Vietnam, and I thought I knew something. I listened to Mass, and I quickly discovered I didn't know anything.
Right.
And he was way ahead of us. And we have been good friends and colleagues ever since. And there's a host of other people. I hate even to mention names because I'm going to forget to mention someone. But Tom Gibbons, another one of our wonderful colleagues, he's been so influential on me and such a force in this business, along with Mandy Capelson and many others. And
if you kind of recognize these voices or these names, you will understand they're all part of the ACLDN advisory board.
Right.
And there's a reason for that. It's because we went out, and I had met these individuals early in my career and trained with them, and knew that that I wanted to be part of that culture, that trainer culture. And so, two of the guys that I basically admire the most, Jim Cirillo and Chuck Taylor, well, they're gone now. And one of the reasons why I wanted to get this down is so, if and when John goes, like you say, he admits he's not going to live forever.
Well, there's no if about it.
Then at least we've got a little bit of his history down on videotape.
Well, you mentioned Jimmy Cirillo was a good friend. I knew Jimmy, and he was a wonderful friend and very very influential also. And just somebody, I have had very few original ideas of my own. I try to take all these emerging concepts and roll them into a package and present it to my students in an understandable way. You know, the basis for all education is learning from other people's mistakes. We don't get to live long enough to learn, you know, make all those mistakes ourselves, nor do we want to.
Yeah.
And so we have to come up with a way that we can say to our students, you don't need to make all these mistakes. We've made them already. Here's what we learned. We've brought it this far. Now, when I'm ancient history, then the next generation, there's a lot of young instructors out there who are very promising. They're going to carry down from here. But I take some pride in saying that, you know, our generation, we brought it along a long way.
Yes, we did.
And we brought it this far, and now we're going to hand it off to the next generation. I guess I'm in the process of doing that now.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I look at what the next one or two generations after ours, what
Right.
they're teaching now, and I think, why didn't I think of that? You know,
Exactly.
it's like, geez, that's pretty amazing. So you're absolutely right as far as that goes.
And I'm sure when we're all shooting neutron beam weapons, they'll develop all kinds of new tactics. And the long after we're an ancient and rapidly fading memory.
Which kind of segues into the next stream of thought that I had is that what changes have you seen in the armed citizen culture since the time you started, 1980s, I guess it was?
Well, 1970 actually, but yeah.
1970,
You know, it's actually dizzying. As I mentioned this morning to your wife Gila, when I was a young patrolman, when I wasn't working, when I was off watch, I carried a 5-shot snubby revolver, and that was, you know, golly, Jack Webb did that, so I guess I can do it too, right?
Right.
For those who don't, Jack Webb was played a character called Sergeant Joe Friday on the old Dragnet series, which no one remembers anyway, but I'm old enough to remember that.
You can view it on Tubi.
What kind of a woman do you think I am?
All we know are the facts, ma'am. Now, why don't you give us a straight story? It's going to save time and trouble for everybody concerned here.
No.
Now we're in the age of terrorism.
Yeah, you're right. There wasn't.
And even that word terror, that back in those days, terrorism, that's something that happens in Africa, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's nothing that happens here. And now, holy cow, we're there. And now we don't carry 5-shooters anymore. We all carry 15 shooters, 16, 17 shooters. Many of us carry 2 guns. And on the other side of the spectrum, the criminal justice system in the intervening decades has become far more sympathetic to criminals, violent criminals, than they ever were. You know, when I first started, and right now we have an entire political party that you could describe as pro-criminal.
Yeah.
And so we have to tell students things that I never would have thought of telling them 40 years ago. Things about aggressive disengagement, about watching your language. You know, we're supposed to have a First Amendment in this country, but when you're involved in something, statements you've made on the internet, perfectly legal, of course, are going to come back and not be helpful.
Yeah, I've got a saying that don't say anything over the internet, don't say anything in an email, don't say anything electronically that you don't want to show up in court. And you're going to have to justify those things.
Yeah.
You know, there's something called the Wayback Machine where they can go back 10, 15 years
Yep, and
of
find
you
out
talking on the internet.
Things you said.
Those forums that were so popular, you know, a dozen years ago.
And in this business, we make lots of speeches. We say lots of things.
Yeah.
Lots of things I say are recorded. I don't even know they're being recorded. And so, yes, we have to be ever so careful, particularly about remarks that could be interpreted as threats. Gee, I wish someone would assassinate that guy. Don't say things like that. Holy cow. Now, 40 years ago, that would not have been a concern.
Yeah.
It is today, and our students need to know this. Even casual conversation. you got to watch what you say. And this has nothing to do with shooting, of course.
Right.
This has something to do with keeping you out of a penitentiary.
It's a given that any time an armed citizen is involved in a shooting, there's immediately a detective assigned to vet you over the internet, to look you up on Facebook, to look you up on the internet and get your history as far as what you've said.
There is no doubt of that, and how much stuff there is. Yeah. People are very careless sometimes in what they publish, and as you say, you could live to regret some things you said. But once again, this was something we never would have thought of.
Yeah.
Not that long ago. But now this has become a very important curriculum item on our instruction. Mm-hmm. And I emphasize this very heavily in my classes. Even casual conversation. When you are inclined to say things like, well, if that guy were broke into my house, I'd blow his head off. Mm-hmm. Well, people heard you say that, and that same detective that's assigned to look at the internet is also assigned to interview your friends. Yeah. And people you associate with. Oh, yeah, he's always talking about shooting people. Yeah. Well, the jury's probably going to hear that. Now, it's not illegal. We're not talking about legalities here. We're not talking about doing the legal thing, the moral thing, the right thing. We're talking about doing the smart thing. Yeah. The smart thing with regard to your personal best interest.
Well, if it's not illegal, and we say these things, then how can that be used against us? Well, in the crime of murder, there is an element called intent. You intended to kill the person. And when the prosecutor is looking to try to prove the element of intent, that's where they go back, pick up your statements from 10, 15 years ago, and extrapolate those out and get them into court. And most of the time, those would be allowed when the prosecutor explains to his honor or her honor, I'm trying to establish intent for the crime to kill.
It's part of a state of mind.
Yeah, exactly. And it says, okay.
And of course, your attorney will object, and he may be sustained. But in my experience, I've been providing expert testimony for a number of years. In my experience, expert testimony or statements that would never have been allowed, these highly speculative statements that no judge would ever have allowed 40 years ago, they're letting in now.
Yeah.
They're letting that stuff in. The jury is going to hear it. And again, the trouble is we don't have a nation of laws anymore. We have a nation of agendas.
Very well put.
And that prosecutor is going to try to make you look like a terrible person. Mm-hmm. And when you do stuff like this, you're going to help them. So that's the last thing in the world you want to do.
Yeah, I am very familiar and remember Prosecutor Daniel Nicolini from the Pima County Prosecutor's Office telling the jury that the individual that he was prosecuting was a gun nut. I mean, come on,
God, is there a statute that makes that illegal?
Yeah, and trying to get the jury to, a gun nut.
Anybody who likes guns can't be a good person. Yeah.
And and I don't mind using his name because he deserves to be exposed.
Yeah. Well, public officials, like prosecutors, are not supposed to bring their personal agendas into their job. That would have been considered a disgrace not many years ago. Now it's common.
Well, many times they're hired because of their personal
they bring that personal agenda. And that's why I say the law has almost become irrelevant. It's the agenda. If someone said, I think that Marty Hayes is molesting children, at that point, would it matter if you were or not? Would the facts even be relevant?
Not until I could prove that it wasn't,
Well, you're right.
and it would be tough.
And even then, 50 years from now, when you're sitting in a wheelchair in Las Vegas pinching fannies on cocktail waitresses, someone's going to come up to you and say, "Oh yeah, you're the guy that was molesting children, weren't you?" You know, it's so unfair the way those labels stick like that.
It is.
When you're charged with some kind of crime, the prosecutor is going to do his best to make you look like a bad person. Look like a person, a gun nut, someone the jury would not want to be associated with. And you shouldn't help them in doing that. So starting right now, you know, if you haven't already, you got to start thinking about this. Watch what, especially if you carry a gun, that we all do. Watch what you say. Be careful of the people you associate with. Organizations you're a member of. And even, I hesitate, even churches you go to now can be used against you, or attempted to be used against you. It's really got out of hand, and down here at the peon level, we have no control over any of this. We just, as instructors, we have to make sure our students are aware of this, and they do the kind of things and avoid doing the kind of things that it's going to make it worse than it already is.
So, have the students changed in the last 50 years you've been doing this?
Yes and no. The question is, you know, have students changed? Demographically, no. I get, as you know, as a vendor in this business, if you call me that, my reputation is I charge a lot and I have small classes. I typically don't have 20 and 30 people in class. I typically have classes of less than 10 people, fewer than 10 people. My students typically had to sacrifice to be there. They know why they're there. A lot of them have had borderline experiences, and that's why they're there. And they make good students. The people I find who make the worst students are rich kids.
Yeah.
They're there on a lark. They don't know. They don't even know why they're there. I've had people when they introduce themselves, they say, "Well, I'm not sure why I'm here." Well, then you probably shouldn't be here. When I first started, I had some of that casual participation, but today my students are all pretty serious, and they know why they're there. And again, I think the best student I have is the one who's had a close call, and boy, it's at that point to that student, this isn't just conversation. This is it's become real to him in an instant, and now he or she knows why they're there. And I'd say in the age of terrorism, I'm getting more Jewish students than I have in the past.
Good. I wish people would take this terrorism threat more seriously.
Yes.
You know, I remember the day after the San Bernardino shooting came out, and I had been carrying small guns, but around then, you know, nothing's ever happened to me. I mean, geez,
Right. No,
I can slip that 5-shot on my pocket and be perfectly safe. And at that day, I told myself, I'm never carrying anything less than a full-size gun.
I have been kidding myself all this time. Yes.
Exactly.
And now, you were smart enough to make that conclusion long distance. Other people aren't. Other people, they're a lot closer when it happens, and they feel that same intense need to change. And other people still don't get it. So, as a practical matter, Marty, you know, most people out there who really need this training will never have as students. They're not motivated to come to a class as our students are, but the ones we can influence, the ones we can motivate, I try to send forth, and I tell them, look, you have people in your family, other people you know, I'll never have as a student, they'll never come to me. The closest they ever come to the true way is what they learn from you. So be prepared to evangelize. Yeah, be prepared to give people this valuable knowledge they need. Well, the biggest change is we went from all carrying revolvers, and we rarely see revolvers anymore. Everybody's carrying auto-loading pistols. Virtually everyone carries an auto-loading pistol in 9mm. That's a very popular caliber. We see very few other calibers. Now we see some 380 autos, but it's mostly 9mm. The 911 crowd, in 45 caliber, I used to have, half the class would be carrying 1911s.
Yeah.
I rarely see them anymore. Heaven knows the 911 crowd is still out there, but every day they get a day older.
Yeah.
And most of us have moved on from the 911 system, and now we're using other systems. The double column 9, I'd say, is the most common. Some states have restrictions on magazine capacity now.
Yep.
But most of my students don't worry about that and carry a normal capacity magazine, even where in states where that is technically not allowed, they do anyway. So carrying 2 guns now is not uncommon.
No.
And that was unheard of. So, yeah, it's moved along. The world has become a lot more dangerous. I don't expect it yet. I expect it to get worse. We're in an election year right now. I have no idea who's going to win. But whoever wins, whatever political direction the country takes, it's going to get worse. But if it ever gets better, it won't be very soon.
Yeah. We're going to need a Supreme Court that grabs the issue by the balls and corrects things.
Yes.
And for whatever reason, even though they've been voting in our favor, they're not voting in our favor sufficiently, in my opinion, to settle these issues so we can move on to more important things.
Even with what they've done, they're being marginalized now. They're the third branch of government.
Yeah.
Well, if you include the bureaucracy, they're the fourth branch. And they are being pushed to the side now. We have a president that just blatantly ignores Supreme Court decisions and dares them to do anything about it.
Yeah.
So I think, as you say, we need Supreme Court justices who mean what they say. And I think we have some, but we've had a fair amount of wishy-washiness on their part, and we have a lot of enthusiasm on the part of leftist politicians to just push them out of the picture altogether.
Yeah.
And so we'll see. We can have a president in there that appoints 16 new Supreme Court justices, which essentially will nullify the whole thing. The 16 people would just generate paralysis, and they wouldn't be able to do anything. And that's exactly what some politicians would like. But that Supreme Court is there for a reason. It's the third branch of government, and it's there to keep the other 2 branches from going off into left field. And as you say, we've had some successes, but they've largely failed.
What else you want to talk about? Anything else you'd like the folks out there, our friends, our colleagues, our students, to know about John Farnam?
Well, I am still running classes, and I have no plans on retiring. I am delighted to have people join us. I'm delighted to be on ACLDN. And I plan on doing this for as long as I can. I learn every day. When I try to go to conferences every year, Tom Gibbons Tactical Conference and all that, and I try to poke around, see what other people are teaching. I'm learning new stuff all the time. And as you said earlier, why didn't I think of that? Yeah. Just about the time you think you know everything, you discover there's a lot you don't know. And to me, that's exciting. We never stop learning. I never stop learning. And when I can share this with my students, to me, that's exciting. It's exciting to think that maybe I'm influencing some people in a positive way. And that's certainly what motivates me.
How many classes do you teach a year and where?
Well, I teach all over the country. I teach a lot of classes in Florida. I teach classes up here in Washington.
Yeah.
I teach classes in New York, Indiana, Virginia, California. And I have taught a number of classes overseas. I've taught a number of classes in Africa and Mexico. But I have not been overseas for a while. It's getting so dangerous now to go offshore that I've kind of curtailed that. The last few years I've confined myself to classes in this country. And you know what it's like to travel by air and all that. But still, the excitement has never subsided. It's still exciting to me to think I get a chance to influence this new group of students. And so that's what drives me on.
Okay, well, that's inspirational, because I took a different turn. I quit teaching actively about close to 10 years ago, when the network started to really take off. And
Right.
I had to make a decision.
Yeah.
Do I want to serve the network, or do I want to serve teaching?
But look at what you've been able to do. You know, this network has done such a great service to this industry. This industry, the educational material you put out is excellent, and it reaches all kinds of people I'll never reach.
Yeah.
And they're getting this information now. And who knows the lives we've saved? Who knows the misery we prevented? Who knows the shootings that would have taken place, but we prevented because students knew how to avoid it. So you are a giant in this field, and we are so thankful you're here.
The fact that we've had 35 of our members involved in self-defense incidents, and none of them have been prosecuted.
Isn't that amazing?
That's great. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
You know,
And who knows how many we've had who avoided incidents.
yeah.
And we'll never know, of course. But, our colleague Andrew Branca talks about, avoidance. And I think as I teach this, that's probably the most important aspect. Most lethal force incidents in which you might ever be involved are probably avoidable.
Well, I got to tell a story. Just a few days ago, I was driving my motor home back home, and I was in this passing lane where I pulled over and let cars go by me because I'm an old guy driving a motorhome.
Right.
Well, and there's couple motorcycle guys coming up, and I was running out of room. I couldn't go anywhere, off the ditch.
Right.
So I had to move over. They should not have been passing me, or they should have had a clue and got by me.
Right.
Well, one of them got offended by it, and he held back, and when he went by, zoom, he flips me off.
Yeah.
I said, okay, I'm glad you feel better now.
Have a nice day. Yeah.
Well, the funny thing is, I ran across that guy about an hour down the road.
Wow.
At a gas station. He's getting gas. I pull in to get gas, and he's there, and I'm thinking, this guy needs a talking to. And so I'm walking into the convenience store, and I look at him, and I say, hi. And that was it. Because I realized nothing I'm going to do or say about why he shouldn't have flipped me off that is going to make a difference in the world.
Right. Yeah.
And who knows, the guy might have had a bad day. He might have been armed.
That's right. Exactly.
And he may have took offense to me.
Exactly.
And pulled his gun, and I pulled my gun.
Yeah.
And Jesus Christ, it would have gone downhill.
Another avoidable.
But I just say, hey, how's it going?
Yeah.
And I knew that he knew that I knew he was the asshole. But anyway, and that comes from a lot of what you say, Just avoid it, don't get involved.
And it goes to lifestyle. It goes to the places you go, the people you associate with, the kinds of language you use.
Yep.
And it goes to, we just talked this morning about aggressive disengagement. When I do have a militant person, or maybe just someone who, an aggressive panhandler, how we aggressively disengage. I'm sorry, sir, I can't help you. You have a nice day. I don't want any prosecutor to accuse me of starting a fight.
Right.
Or accuse me of aggravating it. If someone starts a fight and says something terrible about me, and I say, I'm sorry you feel that way. You have a nice day, sir. You could say something like, why don't you get a job, asshole?
Yeah.
Well, that's a very clever, typical movie line. But some prosecutor is going to come along and say, well, you may not have started it, but you aggravated it. You made it worse. Again, 50 years ago, that would have been neither here nor there.
And of course, somebody in the area would have started their cell phone and videotaping this
Right.
after the altercation starts.
Yep.
All
So
they see is you calling him an asshole.
you can do a lot to help yourself by being very good at not aggravating these circumstances. Even when the fight comes to you, you don't aggravate it. And of course, the best way to deal with this, don't be there in the first place. The second best way is probably get out of there. But when those two things are unavoidable, then you have to be able to aggressively disengage, and so it doesn't escalate into some kind of contact.
The network has spent a little bit of money out of our legal defense fund. A couple of them went into $50,000, $75,000 cases that were eventually dismissed. But at least two of those cases involved our member not taking the logical alternative to leave. They had to get involved. They had to push the issue.
Yeah.
And while what they did was justifiable in the end, if they would have just walked away.
Don't tell me it was very expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was very expensive for us.
If nothing else, it was very expensive. And this is, we all know how our legal system works. Innocent until proven indigent.
Yeah, that's true.
Every prosecutor out there has the power to bankrupt you several times over. We have the best justice money can buy, and you're going to get to pay retail for what you get. So from a financial standpoint alone, getting involved in these kinds of things or inserting yourself into a circumstance in which you were not otherwise involved is very much not in your personal best interest.
No.
Your best interest is served at not being there in the first place or quietly walking away. If someone else wants to be, get involved, that's fine. But this is not the stuff of which martyrs are made.
Yeah. Well, John, why don't we leave it at that? How do people contact you for classes?
The best way to contact me is go to the webpage. If you go to defense training, it's defense, then -training.com, defense-training.com. That's our webpage.
Okay.
You'll see my email there.
Sure.
Send me an email. It's all informal. I do my own paperwork, so when you get a hold of me, I'll respond to you personally. I'm not big enough to have employees, nor do I want them.
No, you don't want that, trust me.
And so we'll get, if you're interested, we'll get you in a class. That's not a problem. And if you're not already, you need to become a member of the network. And Marty and I and the rest of our board members are going to keep at this as long as we can.
Yep, absolutely.
Because this is important work, and I'm proud to be a part of it.
Thank you, John, my friend.
Thank you, Marty.